Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and tonight we'll be looking at the topic, the role of communication in training delivery, driving engagement and impact. Our facilitator is no stranger to this prestigious platform. He is Bazalai Mohammed, and I would like to read his profile very briefly. Bazalai is a dynamic professional with over 18 years of extensive experience in banking, training, and administration. He has a proven record, of delivering results. He excels in developing and implementing training programs, managing staff performance, and ensuring organizational compliance with policies and procedures. He's also committed to lifelong learning. Ladies and gentlemen, his areas of expertise include business communication, business finance, and human resource development. He is the current chairman of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, Kano State Branch. He holds a professional certificate in leadership and communication from the prestigious Harvard University. And he also holds a communication specialization, from University of Washington. Is a certified business communication specialist with certification from Certiport. Ladies and gentlemen, he also has a diploma in business communication. He is a distinguished Toastmasters, DTM, something I hold very dearly. I'm also a DTM. All right, ladies and gentlemen, apart from the fact that he's a distinguished Toastmasters, he also has a master's in communication studies and is a member of various professional associations. And I'll mention very important ones to you right now. He is a member of the National Institute of Training and Development, NITAD. He is a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, CIPM, and is also a member of the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria. Furthermore, is a member of the LDNI network. Last but not the least, one great thing about great teachers is that they are also students concurrently. He's currently a student member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't put this in his profile. I won't mention everything completely, but he works in the banking sector. You can find out the rest on your own. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege, my pleasure, having on this prestigious platform here again, Bazalai Mohammed, speaking to us on the topic, the role of communication in training delivery, driving engagement and impact. The next voice you'll be hearing will be that of distinguished Toastmaster Bazalai. You have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you very much for having me here. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. It's an honor and privilege once more to be here in this wonderful forum. Thank you very much, Mr. Oluyemi, for giving me the opportunity to speak at this wonderful forum once again. My topic, as you said, is about the role of communication in training and development, driving engagement and impact. Now, there's a particular reason why I put driving engagement and impact, because I will have just put maybe the role of communication in training delivery. Let me give you a brief background about me. In 2016, I decided, although I've been in the banking sector for a very long time, I decided to get a career path. And I chose training and development because it's something that I feel that I could achieve much more. And while I went and got certain certifications with regard to training development, I started training people. However, at a certain point in time, I always felt like I was not engaging people. And if you do not engage people, there will be no impact. Have you ever been in a situation where you're training people and their faces will be like, they're blank, they're just looking at you. Any question, they will just look at you like this, and you'll have to leave. Now, those are the kind of trainings that we don't know, but there are some trainings that when a trainer is speaking, you'll just be nodding, smiling, in agreement to what he is saying. Those are the kind of trainings that we should aim for And one of the greatest things that brings this kind of training is communication. Communication is very, very important in ensuring that we give this training. So we're going to see this. So, sorry about that. Okay, so this is the agenda we're going to be having for today. We're going to be having an introduction. We're going to see what effective communication is. We're going to see communication as a medium. We're going to see the role of communication, some of the key outcomes, the trainer, the audience, and the conclusion. So over the next 1 hour, we're going to be seeing these particular issues. So let me ask a question. Whose responsibility is it for understanding communication? Is it the audience or the trainer? Please, let's type in the chat room. Whose responsibility is it that the message that is sent is understood? The trainer or the audience? Let me see the responses in the chat room. Trainer or audience? The trainer. Fantastic. So we are on the same field. So thank you very much. Now, in formal organizations, communication is key to success. In every organization, at whatever time, we try to get the right people for the right job at the right time. The right people for the right job at the right time. However, due to the dynamic nature of our environment, due to the dynamic nature of the world, several things come about that we need to improve upon, particularly in our technical competencies, professional competencies, or leadership competencies. Although you have recruited people that you know that they are the right people for the right job at the right time, however, time dictates that we need to upgrade constantly. And we do this by training. Now, there is a synergy between training and communication. And this is very vital for organizational growth because it assists us in having clear, open communication. And this learning, this training that we're doing, we are doing it for a particular purpose. We are doing it to make sure that we get the best from our staff. Several organizations spend so much money to train their staff, and as trainers, we have to make sure that we give those organizations value for their money. We have to give them value for the money that they paid us to train those people. And one of the things that we have to be careful about, one of the things that we have to pay attention about is communication. A lot of trainers, they make the training about themselves. They make it about themselves. They do not have that connection with the audience. And if you do not have that connection with the audience, the people that you're training, then there would be no impact. There will be no impact. So let's see what effective communication is. Now, several times we tend to communicate, we tend to speak, we tend to send messages, but the thing is, we have not communicated clearly. We have not communicated clearly because when we're communicating, we have to utilize every approach to making sure that our audience understand what we're saying. For example, now, a common sign that we have when we want to ask someone to come is you ask them to come like this, right? What if I ask you to come like this and you don't come towards me? That means that my communication is not complete. So effective communication is all about making sure that what you communicate to the audience, what you communicate to the people that you're training, they do what you want to do. If it's in a change in behavior, if it's something that you need them to improve upon, something they need to learn, communication is only effective when you have that response that you are actually looking for. And communication is very important because it is essential in achieving organization goals. For every organization, we have visions, we have missions, we have our core values that make us who we are in that organization. It drives the organization, it drives the way that the organizations operate. And without communication, people will not go in that direction. And as organizations, we need our staff, we need those people to go in that direction. So with proper and clear communication, you get to tell your staff that, okay, this is what we need to succeed. This is what you need to do. This is what we need from you to make sure that we achieve our goal and target. And that is the importance of effective communication in our organizations. Let me check the chat room for the trainer, okay? So moving on. Now, let's look at communication as a medium of knowledge transfer. Wherever we are, we have to communicate with one another. So communication is the primary medium by which we transfer knowledge from one person to another. It's the medium by which we transfer knowledge from one person to another. And there are various forms. We have the verbal communication, we have the nonverbal communication, and we have the written communication. So for verbal communication, these are communications like we're having now. We're discussing things, through lectures, through discussions, presentations that we make, and verbal connections that we have with our learners that enable them to absorb information, clarify concepts, and engage with instructors or their peers, because learning can come in any form, from instructors, or you can learn from a network of your own peers within the organization. So verbal communication is very important in disseminating the information that learners absorb the information that makes them better versions of themselves. Then we also have non-verbal communication. These are the body languages, the facial expressions, and gestures that also play a critical role in learning. Someone will ask me a question: how does non-verbal communication aid in learning transfer? Now, let me give you an example. I'm a banker and I'm training you on ethics, and I'm smiling and I'm telling you that you should not on any account take money from customers' account, and I'm smiling. What does that show? Let me see in the chat room. I'm teaching you about ethics and I'm telling you that you should not steal money from customers' account, but I'm smiling. Does my verbal communication reiterate what the message I'm trying to send? Let me see that in the chat room. Does it show that? I'm telling you not to steal money, and I'm smiling. Exactly. So you have to show seriousness. You have to make sure that you have to show the seriousness of what you're trying to say. Don't steal money, because they have to know that there are repercussions when they do so. But when you smile, your verbal communication is not in tandem with the message that you're trying to send. So it's very important in training, and we must make sure that our body language goes hand in hand with the message that we're trying to send. Then we also have written communication. This is very important because with the different learners, with the different generations we now have in the workplace, we have to make sure that we pay attention to everyone. We have to make sure that everyone understands clearly their roles and responsibilities. We have to make sure that they have the knowledge, the skills, and abilities that would make them to work in that organization, so that that organization would meet its goal. And written communication also caters for a number of people who, from textbook, manual resources that we use in our organization to engage people, to make sure that people learn what they need to learn. So let's look at the role of communication in training delivery. I'm sorry, I have to put so much text because I want us to understand. On a normal basis, I just put the headline and I explain, but I have to cater for audiences now. So there are some people that like learning, because as I'm going to show you next. So for the role of communication in training and development, the first one is that it facilitates knowledge transfer. Imagine a situation where someone has knowledge and he never communicates to other people. When he goes with the knowledge. But if we want to transfer that knowledge, especially if we have succession planning in our organization, we call people, we ask them to communicate, and communication is the way by which they transfer this knowledge from one person to another within an organization or outside the organization. So communication aids in facilitating knowledge transfer, especially when we're talking of succession planning in organizations and so on and so forth. Then it also aligns learning with organizational goals. For every staff, we're supposed to know the vision, the mission, the core values of our organization. where is this organization heading? Where am I fitting? And through communication, we tend to understand that, okay, this is where I am in this organization. This is who I am, and this is what I'm supposed to do. Clear communication ensures that the learning and development programs that are given to you align with your organizational core values. It aligns with the organization goals and values to make sure that you're able to meet with your tasks that have been assigned to you. It also enhances engagement. That is, when we're communicating with one another, especially during training, we need to make sure that we connect with each and everyone. And we all have our different methods of communication. We all have our ways of communicating with one another. We all have our communication styles that keeps us in attention and ensures that we are actively participating. Because in so many instances, you'll see a lot of people in the training, they're just there in body, but their soul is not there. So as a trainer, you have to make sure that you engage every single person, and communication is the key by which we get to engage one another. Then it promotes two-way learning. Learning is something that comes that you teach someone something and you get feedback. You get feedback, and it's through communication that aids this feedback. Because without that feedback, you will not know that, okay, this person has actually understood what you taught him and bring out that desired behavior that you need him to change or action that you want him to take. So by taking action, that is the feedback that you need to ensure that what you have taught him has actually impacted, he has learned it. So any questions before I move on? Any questions? Let me check the chat room. Okay, someone is asking for the slides of this lecture. Okay. I will leave the host to answer that. Okay. So communication, as we're seeing, is the key to, okay, sorry. Okay, go on, please. All right, thank you. So let's look at how communication aids to the key to improved training outcomes. Now, when you communicate clearly, there was this particular training that I went to. It was an online training. And as the speaker was, as the trainer was training us, honestly, I was just nodding my head, writing. I was smiling at myself because all of the things that he was teaching us actually resonated with us. And when he finished the lectures and we saw his references, I actually had 3 out of the 4 books that he actually used for that presentation. And I was so happy. I quickly went and read those books. So when you are trained properly, when you have a good trainer, it aids in knowledge retention because he's able to communicate to you effectively. It enhances understanding and application. There are so many things that once you are trained, once a trainer trains you, some of these things actually stick to your brain. You do not forget them. They are there, stick to your brain. Why? Because you became one with the trainer and the trainer became one with you. There was that emotional connection that made you to retain that knowledge that he gave to you. Also, it assists us in skill development. That is every single skill that we need, whether communication, whether negotiation skills, we can get them by training. And this brings about improved proficiency in our job roles and competence when it comes to delivering our jobs in the workplace. And if the third one is, if we truly understand that communication, if we truly engage in those trainings, then we have a positive impact in our organization. It brings about increased productivity. It brings about increased performance. For example, you give a training in time management and you teach them techniques that they can use for better effectiveness in their work. And it brings about productivity because one of the major things, for example, that we have in that affects organization is that staff are not appropriately managing their time. So imagine you give them a training on time management and you see that you're meeting deadlines. The service delivery time that you give, okay, for this particular process, you need to spend 3 minutes. Someone is constantly meeting the deadline and finishing it within 2 minutes or 1 minute. So that is one of the things that communication brings about, because it brings about improved training outcomes. It brings about improved training outcomes. So now we're coming to sorry, I forgot to mention that the training, I decided to have it in 3 different segments. We saw the introduction. Now we're going to see the trainer, and we're going to also see the audience, because the trainer is very important when it comes to communication. There's this book by John Maxwell, The 16 Laws of Communication, and he said that, he said in the book that the trainer is the message. How many of us believe that? The trainer is the message. Let me see it in the chat room. The trainer is the message. Do you believe that? The trainer is the message. John Maxwell said it. Let me see your thoughts on it. True, yes. Okay. Harry, you said no. You don't believe that the trainer is the message? Henry, are you on call? He sends the message. Fantastic. Okay, so let's look at the trainer. As I told you, there are various instances where organizations tend to engage trainers that do not have the requisites to give out those trainings. And in the end, the audience are left without an understanding of what they are supposed to learn. Why? Because the trainer is not equipped to provide that training. So for every trainer, if you want to become a trainer, once I started my journey as a trainer, I found out that I was not connecting with people. And I had to go and ask my great uncle Google, and I said, people are not understanding what I'm saying. How can I become, what is my problem? They said, it's a communication style. How can I become a better communicator? Uncle Google give me the list of courses, the books that I have to do, and the stages that I have to go through to become a better communicator. And believe you me, I took more than half of them. I took the best 10 books. I have all of them. I took the best 10 courses and I attended to them. So as a trainer, you need to make sure that you improve your communication in order to engage with your audience, because without that engagement, as I said earlier, there will be no impact. And if there is no impact, then you have not justified the payment that an organization has given you. So let's look at the trainer. Now, in communication, we have something that is called the rhetorical appeal. And the trainer is very important in driving the learning process because he is sending the message to the people. He is telling them, he's trying to shape them and apply them so that they could be able to absorb and apply the knowledge that he wants to send to them. And if you do not have this rhetorical appeals as a public speaker, then you cannot communicate well. There are 3 in number. They are called the rhetorical triangle, and I will try to explain them to you. So the first one is the pathos, which is the emotional connection. I once went to a training where the trainer made the training to be about himself. He was just speaking about himself. He was speaking about himself. And in that training, he didn't show us the journey. He was only showing us. Yes. All right. So I'll recommend the books later. Thank you very much. So the trainer was actually talking about himself throughout the session. I am this, I am that, I am this. But what he failed to show us was that how did he get there? Because, okay, it's very simple now. Without a problem, I will not pay money to go. I knew I had a communication problem. That's why I paid money to go and take these courses, right? So if I am already a good communicator, why would I need to go and spend money to listen to you? So as a trainer, you need to make sure that the audience is first. It's all about the audience and it's never about you. You need to remove that what's in it for me and take that approach of what's in it for them. They came to you because they have a problem. And in order to solve that problem, you need to show them that you're human. You need to show them that you have that emotional state. You need to show them that you have that emotional appeal that, yes, I was once there and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Once you follow this stage, once you follow this, you can become what I am today. But as a trainer, if you're telling them that you're here and you didn't tell us how you went there, then there's a problem, because you will not be able to connect with your audience. You cannot be able to motivate them. People need to know that you're human before you became superhuman. They need to know that you follow the path that they could aspire and also follow the path. So the emotional connection is very important. You need to listen to them. And that is where engagement is. You need to actively listen to your participants. Give them time to speak. Let them bring out their voices. Let them bring out their problems, because they came there to solve that problem. And if they don't have a problem, then what is the use of listening to you? So as a trainer, you need to make sure that you have that emotional connection with those people. Then the second one is about the logos, which is the logical appeal. Now, as a trainer, you need to make sure that whatever you're teaching people there, it's evidence-based, their communication approach that you're taking, you need to make sure that it's clear, coherent, and rational arguments, and it makes sense to the learner. Let me ask a question to the audience. How many of us know Honorable Patrick from Edo State, who was once a member of House of Rep? Now imagine him as a trainer. Would you understand? He is speaking English, right? But if he comes to you as a trainer, would you understand what he is saying? Is it clear, coherent to you? Is it rational to you? Let me see it in the chat room. If Honorable Patrick now comes here and say, I'm going to take a lesson, are you going to understand him? So the approach that he uses exactly the approach that he is using in communication will not be in line with what you can understand. When you're talking to drivers, you need to come down to the level of drivers to make sure that they understand the language. It needs to make sense to them. So you must make sure as a trainer that whatever you're teaching people, it's easy to follow. You do not tell them, there's a certain level of, once we go to the audience, I'll show you that, but you need to make sure that whatever you're telling people, whatever you're training people about, it's easy to follow. Then the third one is about the ethos, which is about the credibility of the trainer. I have seen people, recently I saw a video, and you can understand some of the, it's very funny actually. Someone was claiming to be a marriage counselor and a trainer, and that person has never been married. So what are you teaching them? You have never been married before, and you call yourself a marriage counselor and a trainer. Because wherever you're working, you need to have the knowledge, the skills, and abilities. That is what makes you a professional. Maybe you have the knowledge, but you don't have the skills and abilities because you have not gone through those processes. So as trainers, even though sometimes people will try to assist you, say, come and take this training, but for me, if I do not have experience in any subject matter, I do not train, because that particular training can either make you or mar you. Imagine a situation where someone who can change your life, someone who can take a decision that would make you, and you went and you presented something and it was not worthwhile. They ask you, those kind of things can occur. Someone will ask you a question and you cannot answer him well. And imagine if you can answer him that well, that will have taken you to the top. For example, now, if I say Tony Elumelu, we all know he's into finance and entrepreneurship. So whatever he teaches us about finance and entrepreneurship, we would believe him, because he has the credibility as a trainer, because he has the authority, he has the trustworthiness, he has engaged in these activities for a period of time, and that makes him a subject matter expert. So as trainers, please and please, whenever you're given a subject that you have no expertise on, please just leave it alone. Because once you know something well, the way that you communicate, the way that you will stand, even the gestures will be different than when you do not know something. So for the trainer, you need to make sure you have this rhetorical triangle. You have the emotional connection with your audience, you have the logical appeal, and you have the credibility as a trainer. This credibility can be gotten through qualifications and experience. You need to have the two. You cannot just have qualifications without the experience, because experience is very important when it comes to communication and learning. So as trainers, we must make sure that we have this. So any question? Am I fast? Am I slow? Let me go to the chat room. Okay, sorry, I'm going through the chat room. Okay, now I'm going to look at the audience now. We have finished with the trainer, who must have those three things: that's the knowledge, skills, and other abilities before he can train. For the audience, I have an activity that I'm going to do. My next slide, I'm going to flash it for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And whatever you see there, I want you to type it in the chat room. I want you to type it in the chat room. 30 seconds, and you type it in the chat room, and I'll remove it. So on the count of 3, we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's type it in the chat room. What did you see there? Hey, I'm opening it again. Okay, red, blue, green, yellow, red, blue, green, yellow, okay. Red, blue, yellow, pink. Green, blue, pink, okay. Okay, colors and names of color, okay. So, let me go to the next slide. So who got red, blue, green, yellow, pink in the chat room? Who got red, blue, yellow, pink? Sorry about that. Okay, who got it right? You know, there are two things involved here. What we're trying to test is that some people learn by seeing. That is, they looked at the colors. For those who had red, yellow, green, blue, pink, then they learned by seeing. While for those that had red, blue, green, yellow, pink, you know, the words there, they are different from the actual colors. So that shows that some people learn by reading and some people learn by seeing things. So as a communicator, as a trainer, you need to make sure that you cater for all of these learning abilities. You need to cater for these learning abilities. So let's look at the learning styles that we have. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so for the audience, as we earlier established, the responsibility of making sure that communication is understood is on the trainer. And as a trainer, you need to understand two things. You need to understand that for communication, different people have different learning styles. So you have to make sure that you align those communication styles effectively in your training so that every single person who has different learning styles learn from you. Some people like using visual aids. Some people like verbal explanation, some hands-on experience. Some people like watching videos. So as much as possible, when you're trying to make sure that you're transferring this knowledge, you have to make sure that you cater for your audience, because as we established in the beginning, the audience is number one. The audience is paramount, and it's your responsibility as a trainer or communicator to make sure that the audience understands what you're teaching them. You also have to make sure that they adapt to as a communicator, you have to make sure that what you're training, you have to adapt to knowledge and skills level of your audiences. There are some people that they cannot speak English. You can't force them to speak English. There are some people, you know, the level of education that people have, the complexities. For example, you're speaking engineering terms to a finance guru. Now, there will be a mismatch because he is used to finance. And if you take him deeply into the terms that we have in engineering, there will be a mismatch. So you make sure that you have to know the level of knowledge and skills. Someone once asked me, how do you know this? Before you train, organizations can provide you with such information about the audience. That's their age, you know, their experience level. Are they middle management? Are they higher management? They could also send some surveys to ascertain what's the appropriate learning style for each individual. So when you're a trainer and you need to make sure that you know these things, you can ask the organization, or you can go one-on-one and give people pre-evaluation forms for your training, so that by the time they fill in these forms, you know exactly how to communicate with them. For the learning styles, there's a back theory of learning, which was brought by Neil Fleming in 1978. And he said that people can be divided into 4 vast learning styles. We have the visual, we have the auditory, we have the reading and writing, we have the kinesthetic. So for the visual, for those who learn from visual, these are the people that learn from visual aids, pictures and diagrams, as we have seen from the previous slide that we did that little exercise. And the preferred mode of learning is seeing and observing. So for this kind of individuals, you give them videos, diagram, chart, infographics, and mind maps. Then we have the auditory learners, and these are individuals who learn through listening and hearing. And for these kind of individuals, you need to make sure that you have their preferred mode of learning style is that they need to participate in discussions, lectures, music. So for these kind of individuals, you give them lectures, podcasts, audiobook, group discussions, and interview. Then there are the reading and writing. I fall into this particular segment because whenever I'm trying to learn something new, I have to write it with my own hand. Even if I have a book, I have to have another notebook that I write. And if I don't write, then I cannot memorize it. So for us, we learn through written words, and we like to read and write and take notes. That is how we learn. For us, we like textbooks, manual, handout. I do not like learning from videos. That's one of the funny things. Even when I'm watching videos, I have to take notes. And they are the kinesthetic individuals. Now, for this kind of individuals, they have to work. You know, it has to be a hands-on experience for them. And you have to engage them. You know, they learn by doing. It's experiential learning for them. So for these kind of individuals, we have simulations, experiments, field trips, and so on and so forth. So in the chat room, let me see. Which particular learning styles you fall into? Let me see from these learning styles. Where do you fall into? Where do you fall into? I am the reading and writing type. Let's see 5 to 6 responses. Nasir Salisu visual. Mariam Gomel reading and writing. Yes, team reading and writing are taking it. We have the auditory. Yes, for me. Let's have 2 more. Reading and writing. Yes, team reading and writing. We're exactly discussing and writing. So all of us have our methods of learning style. And as a trainer, as an organization, you may have to make sure that you cater for all of these kind of things. Let me give you an example. In our organization, we have Skillsoft. And the Skillsoft software, the way the courses are is that there are videos, there are audios, there are notes. So it caters for all of these 4. So when you're learning, you can take videos if you want, or you can go and read text, whatever you want. Those kind of learning softwares give you the ability to learn. So they actually cater for everyone. So whatever organization you are, we have, okay, John Alai, reading and writing, Amos, Precious, auditory, Mary Jane, we have kinesthetic. So thank you very much for your contributions. Now, we're going to see, the next thing we're going to see is communication styles. We all have a way that we want people to communicate with us. We all have a way that we want people to communicate with us. And for communication, we have 4 key behavioral communication styles. They are the key, although there may be more, but we have 4 key behavioral styles. And after I present to you, I would like you to tell me where you fall into. Now, the first communication style that we have are the drivers. For these kind of individuals, you'll see that they are assertive, they are result-oriented, and they are competitive. And when you're communicating with these individuals, the preferred communication style is for you to be direct. They don't want you to move up and about. You know, they are not they're not sociable. They want you to be concise. Just tell me concisely what you want. And they are focused on outcome. That is the end result. If I do this, what is it going to bring me? Because they are result-oriented. So when you're communicating with these kind of individuals, you need to make sure that you communicate to them directly. It's not something that you bring to them, go back, no, you have to tell us the outcome of what is it. Then we have the expressive. For these kind of individuals, you see that they're outgoing, they're enthusiastic, they're sociable. The first person that I worked with, he has this trait. You know, when you take a document to him to approve, back then when I was working in a commercial bank, you have to sit down and he has to listen to you. You have to talk to him. He's talkative, he's emotional, and you also have to persuade him. Although he's talkative, but you have to convince him beyond a shadow of a doubt why he needs to do what you're asking him to do. So for this kind of individual, you cannot just go and be silent to them. You have to also talk of Arsenal, Manchester United, and everything before he's able to connect with you. You need to connect with those kind of individuals. Then we have the amiable. Now, for these people, that's us. I also fall into the amiable. For us, we are supportive, we are patient, and we are empathetic. And our communication style is that we are friendly, we are accommodating, but we avoid confrontation. There's one lady that I worked with also back in 2007, and whenever a customer confronts her in the cubicle, that is the end for her. She cannot work properly again that day. So as much as possible, she tries to avoid confrontation. I had to remove her from the front end and make her a dry teller because she's a hardworking individual. But you know, when someone confronts her, she just blames herself. And so those kind of individuals, you see that they're very supportive, patient, but they avoid confrontation and they are accommodating. So when you're communicating with them, do not confront them. You have to be friendly. You have to be accommodating. Then we have the analytical. For these kind of individuals, they are logical, they are detail-oriented. There are some people that if you take a document to them or if you're training them, they are very detail-oriented. They have to know everything about it. They're very precise. So for these kind of individuals, when you're communicating with them, you have to have facts. You have to have, that's why as trainers, whenever we're presenting something, we have to double check it. You need to have your backup, your facts and everything. You have to be systematic about what you're telling them, and you have to be very cautious because they are detail-oriented, they are precise. So you have to be cautious about what you're communicating to them. So quickly in the chat room, let's see, where do you fall in this behavioral? Because once you see this kind of things, you definitely know where you fall into. The people around you also, by seeing these traits, you know where you fall. So let's see in the chat room, where do you fall into? Amiable, analytical, yes. And there are some people that have 2 to 3 traits. That is, they're very dynamic in their communication. And those kind of people, they're very lucky. Yes, kind of stay, okay, analytical. The driver, the amiable, yes. So once you look at these things, you will know where you fall into. You will know where you fall into. And those around you also know where they fall into. So when you're communicating with them, you need to make sure that you communicate to them in this manner. You communicate to them in this manner. So thank you very much for your contributions. So we have come to the end of this presentation. In conclusion, for any organization to grow and thrive, learning and development is an integral factor. Why? Because even though you hire the right person for the right job at the right time, but due to the dynamics of the world, the environment, the sector that we're working in, change up coming in through innovation, inventions, government regulations, and so on and so forth. So at every interval, we need to make sure that we continually update the knowledge of our people to make sure that the professional competencies, leadership competencies, technical competencies, that our staff are up to date with the current standards within the world. But in doing that, training and development plays an important role. And at the heart of the training and development, at the heart of training is communication. Communication plays a very important role because it allows us to be dynamic. It allows us to cater for different audiences, and it serves as a bridge that connects the learners with the knowledge that they need to perform their duties. It also facilitates feedback, enhances engagement, and fosters collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have come to the end of my presentation. At this juncture, I'm open to questions if we have them. Before I thank you very much. Let me go to the chat room. I hope I was not too fast. Yes. Okay, Harry, you say you have a contribution. Mr. Harry, are you on call? Okay, yes, Shegun has.
Okay, yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right, so thank you so much, Mr. Abazalai, for that wonderful presentation. So I just want to make a contribution.
Okay.
Just to argue on the earlier statements that you said, and I quote that the trainer is the message.
Yes.
Yes. So for me, I would just
speaker,
want to
sorry,
say
the
that.
Speaker, not the sender.
Sorry?
I said the speaker is the message.
Yeah, the speaker is the message.
Yes.
So for me, I would say that statement actually lack logical coherence.
Okay.
For me, of course, it's unclear and seems like a misinterpretation of the medium, which is, of course, the message for me, right? Because the trainer,
Okay.
or rather the speaker, is a person who, of course, educates, while a message is, for me, I think is a physical therapy technique. So
Okay.
I see there is no direct logical link between the two, because if the instance if the instance was to say that the trainer, or rather the speaker, shapes the message, then it's more accurate. It's a more accurate statement. I would just want to conclude to say that that phrase is not logically sound, of course, if the intention is to emphasize the speaker's impact on learning, because a clearer statement would just be that the speaker shapes the learning experience, or of course, we can say that the trainer influences how the message is received. So without proper clarification, for me, I think the phrase remains misleading for me. This is my own view, So that's my own contribution. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you. You have actually answered the question, but let me ask you a question again. So if I say Cyril Stober, what comes to your mind?
So Cyril Stober is a newscaster for me. Who, of course, yeah, that name sounds is a news.
When I call Lai Mohammed, what comes into your mind?
He's a politician.
And what? A former what?
Yeah, and a former minister of information.
When I call Tony Elumelu, what comes to your mind?
He's an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And a banker.
So actually, when he speaks about entrepreneurship, would you believe him?
Of course I will.
So the way you're looking, that's one good thing about communication. And Mr. Adeosun also put it in the chat room that you're looking at it literally, the literal meaning, but that's not what he's trying to say. He's saying that people believe what they see. For example, now, whatever Cyril Stober is going to tell you on newscasting, whatever he's going to teach you, would you believe him or not?
Well, I wouldn't believe him because for me, I don't take every information I get, for true, because I always want to verify any information I
Yes,
find.
but once he is training you on, let's say, what he's doing, like Tony Elumelu is training you on entrepreneurship, would you believe the message that he's sending to you?
Somewhat, yes, I will.
Fantastic. Okay, so maybe you should look at it at that angle, because what he's saying is that once you have that subject, once you're a subject matter of expert, for example, I have nothing doing in medicine, I don't know anything about medicine, and I come and I'll train you on medicine. So, there's a mismatch between me and that because I don't know anything about it. So whatever I'm telling you, it's a lie, and the message will not, because you will not understand the message. The message is about you understanding the message, and communication is about influencing you to act. It's about influencing you to act. If Tony Elumelu gives you a tip on entrepreneurship, you're definitely going to act on it because he is an entrepreneur and it has worked for him. So that is the way that you should see it. You should not take it as Mr. Adeyemi said, you should not take it on its literal meaning. But we'll have a discussion later. Let's chat in the HR forum so that we can further discuss because of time. So any other question? Thank you very much for your contribution. Any other question? Contribution?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Segun Adeleke here.
Okay, Segun, you can go ahead. You have the virtual lectern.
Yes, I want to appreciate the last speaker.
Okay.
However, I think if he will look at it from another angle, from angle of when you have the message and you are an embodiment of the message, just like what you are saying now. Yes. When I used to handle factory workers, we used to say that the mentality of an average junior staff is that they hear with their eyes. They hear what you are saying with their eyes. So what they see you doing is what they hear, is what they will do.
Exactly.
So if you are telling them A and you are doing B, what they are hearing is B.
It's different, yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to kind of align with what you have said in this area. For instance, that example or instance of Tony Elumelu now.
Yes.
So now immediately you see somebody, that particular person, we are talking about learning and development now, that this particular person, before he even says something, apart from, let's even leave the area of a workplace now. Let us look at entertainment. You see some comedians. Mere looking at them, you start laughing.
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
You know that this person, what he's going to say will be funny. So yes. I think I want us to look at it from that angle. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
You must embody your message.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So for those who were asking about the books, I have typed 3 into the chat room. So is there any other question before?
Yes, there's a question that is typed here. I'll read it from Nasiru Salisu, FCIPM. My fellow says that, what do you do to an introvert colleague? That is a colleague that is an introvert. When trying to pass a message, this introvert is not willing to open up, and you can hardly understand if he gets the message or not, because he won't provide you with any comment or feedback.
Exactly, yes. So for these kind of situations, one of the issues that we have is that we do not get to know people one-on-one, because before that person will be able to speak, you must provide a safe environment for him. For example, in Toastmasters International, we say that we provide an experiential learning environment that is safe for people to learn and grow. So that environment must be free of judgment, must be free of subjectivity. So before you even, when someone comes to work with you, you have to put him at a stage where you have to put him in a level that he's comfortable with you. It's not only about the work, because for introverts, once you say it's official, then they become official. But when you bring them close to, because when you bring them close to yourself, then there's tendency that they might open up. And a lot of them are afraid of, judgment, because once they say something, so you should have an open door policy where you talk to people not only on work things first, because you have to establish that connection. And the connection that you might establish, it might not be based on the workplace. So maybe you ask him about what, ask him about his house, ask him about what are his, hobbies. And so you must have a connection before they're able to speak. And if you do not have that connection, then you'll continue having that disconnect because there's nothing for them to connect with you. So you must have that factor where you connect to them. So thank you very much for that question.
Thank you so much, sir, for that excellent response. Thank you very kindly for your submission so far. This session has been intensely value-added. We still have a few more minutes. If you'd like to ask a question from
yes,
our
someone
facilitators.
typed in the chat room and he said, as a trainer, how do you engage an audience that is not willing to communicate? So in most instances, you'll see that you will ask someone to contribute and maybe he is shy of communication. So you have to find his learning side. Maybe he prefers to write. So there's one training that I coordinated. There's this lady, she was very shy to speak in front of people. So I switched it. I asked them to write it on a sheet of paper. I asked for the contributions on a sheet of paper. Believe you me, the contributions that she gave was far better than the 20 people that were in that classroom. So for some people, you must find their communication method because maybe someone feels emasculated being in a particular place and cannot speak. And that is why, as much as possible, when we're having these kind of trainings, we tell organizations that there are some trainings that you can put people on different cadre, but as much as possible, put people that are peers in one particular training. Because if, for example, you have someone that her boss is in that training or his boss is in that training, he might not be able to open up because his boss is there. So we must make sure, and as you're making it interactive, people are sharing their experiences, the boss is there, he cannot share his experiences. So when you're having this kind of things, you have to make it maybe a writing, or you find a communication that you engage with that particular person, because there might be a reason why he's not connecting with you, sorry. So you have to find out as a trainer. Trainer, you're in trouble because, as I said earlier, you have to be able to communicate because the audience is paramount. And if you have not connected with your audience, if you have not passed that message, then the training or presentation is not complete. The training is not complete. So any other question? So I will type my details. Someone is asking for my details in the chat room. Am I allowed to do that, sir?
Yes, please. Please type
right.
it in the chat
Okay.
so that they can reach you.
Okay, so you can reach out to me for further explanation. I'll be happy to help you. I was once I was in a particular part of my life, I couldn't communicate well. And in the office, you'll see that in trainings, you see a lot of opportunities passing you. You have the ideas, you have the innovations, but you cannot be able to articulate them. They're in your brain, actually, and you cannot articulate them. So once I knew I had that problem, I started working on it. And today I'm far better as a communicator and a trainer. So we need to understand what is our problem wherever this is a general advice. You need to look at where you are right now and say, okay, I want to be there in the future. What do you need to reach that particular stage? And you have to develop yourself. You just have to move out of your comfort zone. When I started speaking in public, in Mr. Oluyomi knows our Toastmasters setting, there's this speech that we call the icebreaker. It was the first speech that you give in the Toastmasters. Believe you me, I was shaking. It was just a speech of 4 minutes and it felt like an eternity. I promised myself I'll never go back to that meeting, but somehow I have been there for the past 6 years and I don't think I'm going to ever leave. There's this thing that they say, you know, the filler words. I had 29 hours in less than 4 minutes. In less than 4 minutes, I had 29 hours. I had the sheet in my hand, and believe me, I wrote it with my handwriting, but it turned to Chinese characters. I couldn't even understand what I wrote. That's what public speaking can bring to you. I was asking myself, why did I come here? Why did I come here to embarrass myself? But it was one of the best decisions that I made. And, you know, public speaking is something that with time and practice, you can overcome. And you can be, today I can stand in front of 300, 400 people and speak confidently. So let's try to develop ourselves. Communication is very important. When you type the top 10 skills sorry about that. I'm doing two things at the same time. So when you type the top 10 skills that organizations want, leadership and communication are always there. So as much as possible, we should try and improve on our communication skills. So thank you very much for having me, sir. At this juncture, I don't think there's any other question. I will hand over back to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, distinguished Toastmaster Bazalai Mohammed. My privilege and pleasure to have you. Thank you for volunteering to engage with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will be uploaded tonight. Just go to Oluyemi Adeosun on YouTube. If you like to also handle a session on any HR topic of your interest, please do well to send me a WhatsApp message and we will agree and schedule a mutually convenient time. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been extremely interesting tonight. I had fun the last 1 hour. The final thing I'd like us to do is just to appreciate, celebrate, express gratitude to our facilitator. So I enabled everybody and anyone to unmute. Let's just say thank you to our facilitator.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Very much, man.
Thank you,
Baza.